Hey kids, welcome to Unit 5, Lesson 10, Shifting a 2D Array, Exercise number 3. The teacher has students in grade 1 through 5 organized in a 2D array. The teacher uses the 2D array to line up students for the cafeteria lunch line, where each row represents grades 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, respectively. The teacher wants to shift the order of the students in each line by a specified amount. We're going to write the shift lines method to shift each value in the row in the 2D array students by the value given for shift. Then in my console, we're going to call the shift lines method on the students array and print the updated array. Take a look at our code. Here's our array. We have first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade. We're instantiating a new object, my students. It is from the lunch lines class. And then my students is calling the print students method. Let's see what's in lunch lines. We have one private 2D array students. Our constructor takes one array students. We have a get students method. This returns the array of students. A print students method, which is just going through our rows and columns and printing them off one at a time. And then a place for us to write our shift lines method. And kids, this is exactly like we've just done in the last two exercises. Let's walk through it. First, we need our outer for. This is going to be outer for. And this is going to loop through our rows. So int row equal 0 as long as row is less than our students dot length. Then we're going to keep going through our rows. Now we need to go through our inner array. So that's another for statement. This is our inner for. And this is going to be our inner array. And that's going to be going through our column. So we're going to go int column is going to be equal to 0 as long as column is less than, and we've been shifting by 1 this entire time. But they want us to take a parameter shift, and you can see our method does take one parameter shift. So instead of just saying whatever column or row we're at -1, we're just going to specify by our shift. And then we're going to increase our column by 1. Now we need to store our temporary variable. So it's going to be a string because we're working with names. We'll call it temp. It's going to be equal to the students. And that's going to be in our first row. So row, and we're going to go 0. So whatever row we're at, we're going to get that first digit. Now that we did that, we have to loop through and shift. Let's give ourselves a little room. We need another for loop to loop through. And this is going to be our shifting loop. Line 43 doesn't accurately describe what we're doing here. That line initializes a loop variable called count to 0, and then executes the loop body as long as count is less than the value of the shift parameter. In other words, the loop body will execute shift number of times, and during each iteration of the loop, the inner loop will shift the values in the row to the right by 1 position. This process is repeated shift number of times to achieve the desired shift for each row in the student's array. Overall, this line plays a key role in shifting the rows in the student's array by a specified number of positions to the right. This means our nested for loop just looks a little different. Let's change our variables here. Let's be a little more accurate. This is going to be a count. Make this our count and this our count because that's how we're shifting. And now we're going to go through our columns and actually move them over. Int column is going to be equal to 0 as long as the column is less than the students array, and we want to start at the 0, 1. And we're going to go through the length of that row minus 1. Remember the debugging exercise? As long as we are under that length, we want our columns to go up. Now let's shift our students over. So students at the row and column are now going to be equal to the one right next to it. So students, put our semicolon, we want the same row. We want to go column plus 1 because we want to shift everything by 1. We need to assign the end value now, our starting value. So we're going to come after our shift. We're going to say students at the row. And we want to go to the length or the end. So we want to go to the end of the student's row. And we just want to get the length of one of them. So length, and again, minus 1. That is going to be equal to our temp variable we stored from above. That's it. Let's clean up our code. This is our end of class, end of method. This should shift everything over. We are going through the row. We're getting a count to move them over. We're storing our first value. That's the first to get overwritten. We're moving everything over by 1. And then we're taking that temporary variable that was the first to get overwritten, move it to the end. We're not done. We still have to call the object. Let's go to my console. From the my students object, we're going to call the shift lines. And I think I spelled that wrong already. Method, and it takes one parameter. How many do we want to shift it by? Let's try 1 to begin with. After that, we have to print off that we shifted our line. So we're going to say, just like before, use our escape character, shifted lines of students. Then we have to call our print method again, the print students. Control C, Control V. My students should be capital. Everything else looks pretty good. When I hit run, I should get my 2D array to print off. And then I should be able to shift it by 1 or whatever amount I put into it. Let's go ahead and hit run and see if I'm right. You can see my first one shifted by 1. Let's try by 3. One, 2, 3. Alexis should be 1. Beatrice 2. Looks like our code's working pretty good. Key takeaway, again, is just further reinforcing how to use this shift method. Again, it's a lot like the methods we've been using. Anytime we have to swap or replace a number, we have to use a temporary placeholder to store that information. With the shift method, we're shifting everything left or right. The first to always get overridden is that element at 0, so we store that, and then we move that to the position we want, which is the end. Hopefully this video helped you understand shifting a 2D array a little better. As always, kids, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. See you later, kids. Bye. Bye.